In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 $3 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls? Start saving thousands in interest and fees and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
And this is J.D. Manier and George Landreth here on a beautiful Tuesday with the Conservative Commandos. WNJT 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia. It's a thrill to be with you all. I'm usually on with Rick on Wednesdays, but the lineup changes, and it's great to have George with me. How you doing, George?
I'm doing great. It's always good to be talking about important things, and certainly these are important times, so it's always good.
Unbelievable times, and I think we've got a great show lined up, but before we tell everybody how that's going to play out, I always enjoy working with you, George. Mentored under you in the Leadership Institute a few years ago with my wife, attended some classes, and you were one of my first guests, George, when I first started in with the Conservative Commandos radio show in 2012, celebrating about 4 years now. So great to have you on. And we have a lightning round, a lot of good stuff to talk about. And
absolutely.
This first issue involves football.
Gotta love football, right? Well,
yeah.
And I love watching football. I mean, I'm a big fan and all that, but it is interesting to see that Sunday Night Football ratings fell to a 5-year low, and we've seen this trend throughout the football. So it wasn't just Sunday night. There's been a consistent fall, and I don't know. Maybe it was the Walking Dead retrospective special they had on that night. Could have been the baseball playoffs. But the truth of the matter is, there's baseball playoffs every October, and yet this year it seems to be making a big difference. I don't know. Do you have any sense of what it might be? I've heard speculation that football's oversaturated. They've got Thursday night now, and just too much football. But they had that last year, and there wasn't too much football last year.
Oh, I think, and I've been hearing surveys being done, and I think it's the Colin Kaepernick fiasco, and people on a lot of teams just refusing to pay homage and respect our flag. And I've heard surveys that even as high as 30% of regular NFL fans are going to not support these teams and players that do this, and I think it's been really bad. Football is America's game, and you know what's interesting to me is that Texans-Colts game. Of course, I'm from Indianapolis, a big Colts fan, but that was the game to decide who's going to take sole possession of the division in the run up to the playoffs, and it actually ended up being an incredible game. It went into overtime, with the Texans, unfortunately, on my side of the fence, scoring 2 touchdowns to take it into overtime and then winning in overtime. So the end of the game was just incredible, and had lots of drama. But
so
George,
your point is it wasn't a boring game.
But what do you think of this disrespect of our flag? I think it's tearing down the league. What do you say?
I do too. I mean, I will tell you, there's certain sports that that the base demographic. You know, you go to NASCAR, and let's assume that some NASCAR driver decides that he is not going to stand during the national anthem. I don't think that would be well received by NASCAR fans. I think the base NASCAR fan is super, super patriotic. And I don't know if the average NFL fan is quite that patriotic, but there's definitely that same demographic in there. And all I mean by that is maybe that's 75% of the NASCAR fan base. It's probably 65% of the NFL base. So alienating over half your viewers, some of which will watch anyhow while grumbling to themselves, and some of whom will say, I've had enough of this garbage, and tune out. And I don't understand it. I mean, I really would be shocked to see a NASCAR driver do that. It would demonstrate he has no idea who his fans are and who's supporting him. You know, Colin Kaepernick has whatever feelings or views he has. He has the right to those feelings. I'm not telling him how he has to feel, but he's essentially an employee of the NFL. And I guess my question is, if I owned a store or a shop, a services-based industry, or let's say I own a theater and we're performing, and out front the participants in my firm are out telling viewers, please don't come here, it's not that good, you won't enjoy it, go somewhere else, go down the street, there's a better restaurant down the street, there's a better play at another playhouse, there's a better whatever. Would I have the right to tell them to cut it out or not? In other words, the people I pay, do I have to pay them to chase away my customers? What do you think?
I think not. I think not. And we had a Pro Bowl, multiple Pro Bowl selected cornerback who would not stand for the flag in England, because we played a game over in London 2 weeks ago, and then the next week the Colts let him go, canceled the contract.
Right, and I think that's a reasonable approach. And you could say you're denying him his free speech, and the attitude is, no, I'm not, because first of all, the First Amendment applies to government. The founders did not expect, if I came to your house for dinner, and I'm sitting there, and I don't know, maybe I'm using language, it's entirely inappropriate, your wife and kids are just like going, I can't believe this guy, what's going on? And then you say, George, can you cut it out? Can you clean up the act a little bit? And then I pull I have a First Amendment right to say this. You'd be like, not in my house, you don't. And the First Amendment does not protect your right to say whatever you want, whenever you want, vis-a-vis other people. They can respond. It's there to protect you from government attempts to silence you. That's what the founders were worried about. That's why it says Congress shall make no law. It doesn't, So first of all, it's a very different. I don't get it, but it's frustrating to me to see this. But there's all kinds of other things going on. We probably shouldn't spend all of our time talking about this.
Oh, I know. It got us riled up. But I'll go right to the next one. That looks like the Clintons. The Clintons have quite a custom van. Remember when Hillary stumbled there at 9/11, and it was a hot day, and she went into that. It's a souped-up Clinton van that features a big bed in the back.
Exactly. Now, if it were Bill, I would assume the bed is used for something different, given Bill's highly publicized peccadillos. But with Mrs. Clinton, I guess the assumption is, maybe Mr. Trump is right. Maybe she is tired and sleepy and just needs to kind of relax and hit the snooze button a little bit more. But I thought it was interesting that this is something that we've seen revealed in emails through WikiLeaks. We now know that she needs nap time while she's traveling around. Just funny stuff. But, something that's not very
she's
funny.
She's napping now. She's not made any public appearances for 4 or 5 days in a run-up to the debates Wednesday, tomorrow.
Right. And you can't do this much debate prep. I mean, there's only so much of that you can do. On something that's not so funny, someone threw a bomb in and tried to blow up the Orange County, North Carolina GOP headquarters. I think it's interesting. You throw a bomb into a facility that normally would have people in it, and then you spray paint a swastika on it, and you call the people who use that building Nazis. And I'm trying to figure out, does this person have no sense of irony whatsoever? Firebombing a location, and then calling the victims of the firebombing. It's crazy stuff. I see we're up against a break, though. So, I don't know, JD, you want to take us out, or should I?
Feel right ahead. Go right ahead, George.
Okay, I will jump in and I'll take us out. We're going to be right back, of course. You're listening to J.D. Manier and George Landreth. This is the Conservative Commandos, and we're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, which is our flagship station in Philadelphia. But we're also coming to you from around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7. Don't go away. JD and I'll be right back.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Since 2011, we have been calling for a national commitment from all Americans to participate in an annual event to honor all of the victims and their families who suffered during and after the most devastating event to ever take place on American soil. We all remember those horrible scenes of destruction on September 11th, 2001 that unfolded right before our eyes, either up front or on television. We continue to ask every American to participate in the united action of prayer, which is simply to stop whatever you are doing at precisely 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. to either observe 1 minute of silence or to offer a prayer to honor the memory of those who are directly affected by this unforgettable scene of destruction. Please include a prayer of thanks for living in a country where even something as horrific as 9/11 could not weaken our spirit. This year, we would like to ask one more thing as a show of unity since we are still fighting with the enemy who caused the 9/11 tragedy. Would you display the flag for the day at your home, on your car, bike, or anywhere you can display Old Glory? Let's show our enemies that we can still unite in our love for our country.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
And this is J.D. Manier and George Landreth. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, just check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com. and CCRShow.com. Or at noontime, log on to roarradio.net. at 11 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com, and you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Well, George, back from the break, and this is a hot topic, voter fraud. Trump is concerned. He's asking people to monitor in certain situations. I know we have to be concerned about the Democrats in the cities. This is where we've seen so many cases of voter fraud over the years. But what say you? Because our president says, oh, no, it doesn't happen. There aren't any cases I can recall.
Right, and he acts like everybody agrees with him. He says nobody agrees. Anybody who's looked at this seriously, it doesn't matter what their ideology is, has said there isn't voter fraud. That's completely off the charts backwards. How about Senator Saturday Night Live, what's his name? Smalley. He beat Coleman, and I'm just drawing a blank now. But anyhow. Oh,
from Minnesota, yeah. Oh, heavens, yes.
And we're both having the same.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. It was in Minnesota. Norm Coleman was the Republican candidate, and when they started, and it was so close that it was down just like a few dozen votes, and then they started unwrapping.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Senator Al Franken. He was absolutely elected by voter fraud. They were finding 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 days after the election, after they've done counts and recounts, they would find a new bundle, a new bag of ballots that had been cast and left in somebody's trunk. Like that's how we normally store them, right? Like if someone drove home that night for the precinct, forgot all about it. And it's a very close election. It's being recounted, and then all of a sudden, whoops! I just remembered they're in my trunk, and and that kind of stuff. So, this is the sort of stuff that they say never happens, but it happens all the time. And just recently, a Ohio postal worker was bragging about destroying Trump absentee ballots.
He tweeted that.
Yeah, on Twitter. He said, "I love working at the post office in Columbus, ripping up absentee ballots that vote for Trump."
That's scary. Back to Minnesota, I recall there was like 131 absentee ballots from a certain precinct, and they all were against Coleman. They were for the Democrat, and that was what put him over. You're right. After 5, 6, 7 days, they say, "Voila! Look at what we found."
Right.
And or places where 115% of the registered voters turn out to vote. That's pretty sad, George.
Right.
And
exactly.
Chicago, where the dead vote repeatedly.
Or you have for example, in that year you had over 1,000. I think it was 1,099 convicted felons who cast votes in the Coleman versus Al Franken senatorial contest. Well, he won by a couple, like 150, after they kept finding new ballots. The first time Coleman won by about 780 votes, and then he won by 300 votes, and finally, after they kept, if you count the votes often enough and decide that you keep finding new bags of ballots somewhere in somebody's trunk, next thing you know, voila, we have a new winner. When you have 1,000 felons vote, I'm pretty sure the 1,000 felons are not voting for the Republican.
Or 1,500 newly minted U.S. citizens, by mistake, now can cast their ballots. I don't think it was actually a mistake. Do you?
Doesn't seem likely to me. I find it a little hard to believe. So, anyhow, my point isn't to suggest. I think sometimes it is precision is useful when speaking, and I think sometimes Mr. Trump just says the election's rigged, and that leaves people to lead all kinds of questions, like, has it already been decided against him? That's one potential meaning of rigged. I think in that context, certainly the media coverage against him is clearly rigged. I mean, that I don't think there's any question of. I don't think you could yet say the election itself, meaning the casting of votes, has been rigged, but there's no doubt in my mind that the left is going to do this in certain areas. Historically, what happens in Pennsylvania is in areas in and around Philadelphia, Philadelphia, they are voting. You had many precincts that were not a single, out of the thousands of votes cast, not one was cast for Mitt Romney. See, I live in a very Republican area of Virginia, but I guarantee you there'll be votes cast for a Democrat. You know, I mean, it's just the idea there's not a single person in that precinct who voted for Mitt Romney strikes me as absurd. It's just 100%. I mean, I understand like 95%, even 99%, but 100%, to me, 100% implies fraud on some level.
Yes. I've had poll workers cry in front of me and complain, even in Indianapolis, because it was virtually an all Democrat polling place, and you had one Republican there, and I remember her saying, at one point, she remembers this is an election about in 2008, and she was crying, saying, look, the lead said, oh, we can't check all these IDs. We just don't have enough people, so just let them come in and vote. That was the people leading that polling site. So it's just something I think Trump is bringing up the right issue. He wants us to be vigilant, and we can help monitor groups like True the Vote and others. That's what he's calling for, is free and fair elections. And,
right. But I don't think he's arguing that the election has already been decided, because if he were, that means he's wasting his time, and I don't think he thinks he's wasting his time. So, you know, I always find, you know, the left wants to. The other thing I find interesting is their argument is, this is irresponsible to say this. He's destroying, our electoral system. It's like, no, talking about the fact that there's people doing bad things and breaking the law is not destroying the electoral system. It's actually the people who are breaking the law and cheating and, casting fake votes and so forth. They're the ones that are, it's very funny that, talking about, that'd be like saying that if we had a show where we talked about violent crime, that us talking about violent crime is the same as committing violent crime. Really?
Well, as president, he would really be a bulldog on waste, fraud, and corruption. I mean, he's a business person, and we need that. We need a big cleaning of house up in D.C.
Yeah, like you said, we need to drain the swamp.
George, we want to talk about our guests here in our last couple minutes before we
Absolutely.
break.
You want me to lead off?
Go ahead. I think you've got a couple of nice guests, and speak about them at 335, 405.
Yeah. So at first I've got Kelly Rydell. She's a journalist. She writes a column for the Washington Times, one of the great conservative newspapers in America. She writes the water cooler piece. She's appeared in all kinds of other places. Interestingly, in 2014, she broke a story about how George Soros had given $33 million in 1 year to support activist groups during the Ferguson protests, if you recall those. She broke that story. In 2015, she broke another story about the Clinton Foundation, how it collected $26 million in donations from a fundraising arm in Sweden. At the same time, that country was lobbying the State Department to forego sanctions that would threaten business connections with Iran. So it should be an interesting discussion, but she's going to talk to us a little bit more about what the WikiLeaks stories are showing. I think you've got somebody at 4 o'clock, right?
Well, I think that's your guess.
Is Jeff is mine?
I think Jeff is my guest.
Is Jeff at 4:30?
Yeah, I have him at 4:35.
Okay, sounds good. Then I've got Cham. Cham Mandelbaum is an attorney. Got his degree from George Mason, and he works with the Energy and Environmental Legal Institute. And he's going to talk to us about the legal battle over climate change and how the Justice Department and states' attorney generals are colluding to try to go after both ExxonMobil and, quite frankly, yours truly. I'm one of the people. Frontiers of Freedom is listed as one of the groups in their subpoenas that they're going after, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about some of the crazy stuff that's going on there, the political agenda, and how they're abusing the legal system.
Well, then at 4:35, Jeff Cruer. He's a returning guest, native of New Orleans, and he hosts a PBS show called Ringside Politics. And he's on every day, WGSO 990 AM in New Orleans. I think he's the best talk show host in the state of Louisiana. And he's going to talk about the Republican Party is over, turn out the lights, basically, when you have so many of the Republican leadership, even past presidential candidates, refusing to back Trump. And what's going on here? How on earth could they be supporting Hillary Clinton? And I think people really want to find out, dig deep in on this issue, because it's just crazy in my mind, George. It's just total treason. Makes no sense. But folks, hang on.
It's going to be an interesting discussion, that's for sure.
We're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studio, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7.
Crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow Patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions. We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
Since 2011, we have been calling for a national commitment from all Americans to participate in an annual event to honor all of the victims and their families who suffered during and after the most devastating event to ever take place on American soil. We all remember those horrible scenes of destruction on September 11th, 2001 that unfolded right before our eyes, either up front or on television. We continue to ask every American to participate in the united action of prayer, which is simply to stop whatever you are doing at precisely 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. to either observe 1 minute of silence or to offer a prayer to honor the memory of those who are directly affected by this unforgettable scene of destruction. Please include a prayer of thanks for living in a country where even something as horrific as 9/11 could not weaken our spirit. This year, we would like to ask one more thing as a show of unity since we are still fighting with the enemy who caused the 9/11 tragedy. Would you display the flag for the day at your home, on your car, bike, or anywhere you can display Old Glory? Let's show our enemies that we can still unite in our love for our country.
I'm Pastor Christina Lamanier. I'm a concerned mother and grandmother, and I urge you to vote for Donald Trump. Our Commander-in-Chief's highest priority is to secure the safety and freedom of Americans of every race, creed, and color. Trump will solve the ISIS crisis quickly and utilize the talents of people like Mayor Rudy Giuliani to restore law and order in our streets. Donald Trump will build the wall, secure our borders, and bring back jobs and prosperity to America by slashing taxes, cutting government waste, stamping out political correctness, harnessing our abundant natural resources, unleashing the patriotism and genius of we the people. Always remember, there is a special place in heaven for followers of Jesus Christ.
For more information, log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRA Super PAC paid for this ad and is solely responsible for its content, not authorized by any candidate or its committee.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Businessman there, drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Greetings. This is the Conservative Commandos. Your host is J.D. Manier, along with me, George Landreth. Rick Trader is out today, but don't worry, he will be back. In the meantime, JD and I are trying to hold down the fort. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. At noon, you can always log on to roarradio.net, and at 11, you can log on to High Plains Daily News. And you can always listen to Conservative Commandos with a phone and this phone number, 832-999-1199. Well, we are in the process of getting our next guest on shortly, and perhaps I should just kind of start introducing her, and then if need be, we can, JD and I can pick up the conversation in her absence until we've got her. But Kelly Rydell is, as I mentioned earlier, she's a journalist and columnist. She writes the water cooler column or blog at the Washington Times. She is a regular contributor to the Times on political issues, and of course, additionally, her work appears at Fox News, U.S. News and World Report, the Albany Times, Union, and of course, Bloomberg. Now, she has appeared many, many times on political shows, including the O'Reilly Factor and Hannity, and I think of real interest is that in April of 2014, she broke the story about George Soros giving $33 million just in that 1 year to support activist groups that were protesting and burning things down and causing all kinds of trouble in Ferguson and the aftermath of Ferguson. So And then, as if that's not enough, great story to be breaking, in June of 2015, Kelly broke the story about the Clinton Foundation collecting $26 million in donations from a fundraising arm in Sweden. At the same time, the country was lobbying Hillary Clinton as the Secretary of State to forego sanctions that threaten their business connections with Iran. So, that's kind of some amazing journalistic work he's done. I think we've got her on the line now. So, Kelly, you may not have heard your entire intro, but welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, Kelly has written a great article, and she has apparently been pouring through the WikiLeaks email. The problem, of course, there is it's a big document dump. So she's not looking at a small pile of paper. She's going through a lot of stuff, and she has culled through this and found some interesting scandals that might not have caught your attention yet. So, Kelly, why don't you give us a rundown on what your review reveals?
Well, I mean, it definitely reveals the pay-to-play kind of allegations that the right has been accusing the Clintons of since, the early 90s. And then with their Clinton Foundation, just the work that the Clinton Foundation was doing in Haiti. And that how at the State Department they would specially, they'd put through requests from Bill Clinton's donors, friends of Bill. They'd have special abbreviations in terms of how they deal with Bill Clinton's friends, and then they'd get immediate access to people at the State Department, which would approve, the relief that happened in terms of the earthquake there, which was very profitable for a lot of companies that went down and did that relief work, as well as for some of Bill Clinton's friends. And on top of that, speaking of the Clinton Foundation, Chelsea Clinton actually was very critical of this kind of donor relationship and the State Department relationship and maybe the quid pro quo or conflict of interests. So she basically looked for an independent governance review from a law firm here in D.C. that specializes in nonprofits to look into the foundation and its donors. And one of the things that it found, this independent review, was that many of the foundation's donors had an expectation of a quid pro quo benefits in return for gifts. I mean, and
now, where would they have gotten that idea?
That.
I mean, did they just assume that, or were they given that idea?
Well, I mean, Chelsea allowed this law firm to basically go in and look at the foundation's donors, interview the board. They basically found that the Clinton Foundation had a rubber stamp board that would do anything that Bill Clinton wanted it to, and so she was concerned. And this independent review, which they kept private. I mean, of course, they didn't air this to the public, but this was one of the things. This review and the information that was distilled from it was one of the reports that was leaked in WikiLeaks. It was in John Podesta's email.
Now, with the Clinton Foundation, it seems to me it's kind of a cash cow that they have used for, and then they do a few good things. I got that.
Yes.
They bring in hundreds of millions of dollars. They spend a small fraction of that on doing a few good things because that's their cover, a little camouflage. And then the rest of it's spent on stuff the Clintons need, hiring political people and paying for their travel, etc. But what I think's odd is she left the White House by her own admission. She was broke. Bill was broke. Okay, they were, Chelsea was young and broke. So the family's broke. And now the family collectively is worth like $150 million by their own, this isn't me guessing it, this is what they claim they're worth. So I want to know how Bill's been retired, and she was drawing a Secretary of State salary, which is pretty good money, I guess, compared to most, but not the kind of money that can make you worth $200 million or $150 million in the space of, 10, 15 years. It's just not that much money. So is the Clinton Foundation part of their get-rich-quick scheme, or am I being too cynical?
Oh, I think that their paid speeches and their desire to stay in the political elite class. That is, the Clinton Foundation definitely did benefits or catered to their donors, and their donors put in. One of the things that came up in the WikiLeaks dump was that the government of Qatar, a Middle Eastern country, where in Mrs. Clinton, when one of Hillary Clinton's emails says that they are a prime funder, along with Saudi Arabia, of ISIS, pledged $1 million to Bill Clinton for his birthday present to the Clinton Foundation. Wow. And then if they could get a meeting with him, a few minute meeting, all they needed was a 5 or 10 minute meeting, then they'd really like to talk about where they'd like to place $20 million more in charitable donations. So it's these sorts of transactions that we see over and over.
Can we get you to stick with us to the break? Because I want to continue this conversation, but the clock's dictating right now to us.
No problem.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. You, of course, are listening to the Conservative Commandos. We're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios. You've got J.D. Manier and George Landreth here with our guest, Kelly Rydell. And we're on WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia. We're coming to you also from around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM/FM 24/7. Don't go away. J.D., I and Kelly will be right back.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Since 2011, we have been calling for a national commitment from all Americans to participate in an annual event to honor all of the victims and their families who suffered during and after the most devastating event to ever take place on American soil. We all remember those horrible scenes of destruction on September 11th, 2001 that unfolded right before our eyes, either up front or on television. We continue to ask every American to participate in the united action of prayer, which is simply to stop whatever you are doing at precisely 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. to either observe 1 minute of silence or to offer a prayer to honor the memory of those who are directly affected by this unforgettable scene of destruction. Please include a prayer of thanks for living in a country where even something as horrific as 9/11 could not weaken our spirit. This year, we would like to ask one more thing as a show of unity, since we are still fighting with the enemy who caused the 9/11 tragedy. Would you display the flag for the day at your home, on your car, bike, or anywhere you can display Old Glory? Let's show our enemies that we can still unite in our love for our country.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Greetings. This is George Landreth with J.D. Manier. You are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio program, and of course, you should know that Rick Trader, our fearless leader, will be back in a few days. He's just taking a much-deserved respite, but he will be back. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. At noon, you can log on to roarradio.net, and at 11 p.m., you can log on to highplainsdailynews.com. And with this number and a phone, you can always listen to the Conservative Commandos, 832-999-1199. 888-866-9999. We have been having a conversation with Kelly Rydell. She is a journalist. She writes at the Washington Times. Just to give you a quick review, I think two critically important things. The shortened version of her bio would be that she's broken two huge stories. One, that Soros provided $33 million to fund the protests in the aftermath of the Ferguson protests and all the violence and looting and so forth that went there. And that she also broke the story about the Clinton Foundation collecting $26 million in a clear conflict of interest in relation to Iran and the Iran deal and the sanctions of all of that. So she is out there holding people in power accountable. I've often said that if you want to see the press do its job, you're going to have to vote for Republicans, because the mainstream press will not hold Democrats accountable. Obviously, Kelly is the exception to that. Unfortunately, she's one of the few. She's doing her work and doing it right. She's been talking to us about some of the WikiLeaks scandals that have been exposed, and I kind of had to interrupt her just because the clock was dictating things. So, Kelly, I just want to get you back on we were talking about the Clinton Foundation and the pay-for-play stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you had anything more you wanted to say on that, but in and of itself is a big enough scandal that someone should probably go to prison, and it clearly disqualifies her by itself. If it were the only scandal WikiLeaks was showing us, to say that she ought not be president of the United States.
Yeah, and there's still no resolution on what's going to happen to the Clinton Foundation if Hillary Clinton becomes, the president. They said that there would be no family board members on the boards of the Clinton. They detached themselves, but then they kind of caveated it a week later, saying, well, that might not include Chelsea. Chelsea might still be on the board of CHI, which is their health access initiative. So there's really no clear answer as to what happens to the Clinton Foundation after Hillary Clinton becomes president. And what is Bill Clinton going to do as first gentleman? I mean, this is something else. I don't think that Bill Clinton can let his baby go and the free trips around the world. What is he going to do as first gentleman?
Hey, Kelly, this is JD. And I want you to comment. I mean, it just blows my mind. She kept illegally an unsecure server to conduct pay-to-play. Mm-hmm. But if you watch the debates, she's so terribly concerned about U.S. cybersecurity and potential hacking from the Russians. Isn't this a case of do as I say, not as I do?
She's just so concerned with her own personal privacy that it deludes her judgment. And this really is a question of judgment. She came in, and when she came into the Secretary of State role in 2009, she purposely had this private email server set up so that she would not be subject to FOIA information requests. And I'm going through these WikiLeaks emails. Barack Obama knew of that server as soon as it was set up. He was emailing with her on her private email server under a fake name. Huma Abedin, when the FBI is now doing its data dump too. When they questioned Huma Abedin, is like, who is this person? And it was actually the president. And she was even startled. Wow, I had no idea. But these emails go back all the way back to when she started as Secretary of State. And you had, President Obama come out in March 2015 when the scandal broke, the email scandal broke, saying, I learned of her private server, I learned of her private email address when this news broke. That is a lie. This administration blatantly lies, and the more of these WikiLeaks that are coming and more of the FBI is dumping on us, the more, the clearer this picture becomes to anyone who's paying attention out there.
And this is the line he uses all the time. When the IRS story broke, he learned of it first on the news. Yeah. It's like, is he the most uninformed man in America? I mean, he's the president of the United States. He has hundreds of people who work for him, if not thousands. I mean directly for him. I don't mean like the whole government. I just mean, for him, literally. Like they brief him, they work for him. Their whole sole purpose and justification at their job is to provide us information. And yet he needs to turn on CNN or MSNBC, because I'm sure he's not watching Fox, to learn what's going on in the world today.
It's just unbelievable that they expect the public just to swallow this and be like, okay, that sounds good. And you know what the problem is that half of Americans that are supporting Hillary Clinton and going to vote her into office do. And they're not looking into any of this stuff. And the mainstream media is also to blame here. I mean, last week, Donald Trump got covered 7-1 over these WikiLeaks scandals. And in the mainstream media, you had New York Times reporters and Andrea Mitchell agree that this WikiLeaks didn't uncover anything but campaign, talk, which was great for the insiders, but didn't let us. There was no bombshells there. Well, I'm sorry. There are some bombshells there. Just as another, this is just regarding President Obama. We found out through these WikiLeaks that he had his entire cabinet picked out a month before he won the general election. And you know who picked him out? A Citigroup executive. A Citigroup executive who, Citigroup, by the way, at the time was getting the largest bailout of, in history of a U.S. bank.
Can you say conflict of interest, boys and girls?
I mean, and literally he named the entire cabinet in an email to John Podesta, and virtually all of it came to be as soon as Obama came into office. And this is the cronyism that, to be honest, happens on both sides of the aisle, but is entrenched with rewarding Democratic donors, with rewarding Democratic loyalists, and how cozy the Wall Street relationship really is. And Hillary Clinton she's probably got her cabinet picked out too, based on her top donors. There's no expectation that any of this is going to change. It's just going to be this status quo personified.
Wow. Well, now, just in terms of one of the things that JD was whispering in my ear was that Obama was skipping his security briefings, so some of those people who are working for him aren't actually having any impact, and that he's probably busy golfing. I think JD's right on both counts, quite frankly. But on top of that, it just seems to me that this whole thing it stinks to high heaven, and it's just amazing to me. We've only got about 2 minutes to go, but and before we end, I want to make sure I give people a chance to learn where they can follow your work and make sure that they bookmark sites and things like that, and so whether it's Twitter or whatever you use, I want to make sure you have a chance to do that. But I also want to hit one more thing. This whole thing about her having sent classified information, when I heard her talk, her first story was there was no classified information. Then it was I didn't send any. Then it wasn't marked. Then it was I didn't understand it was marked. Is there any evidence in her emails that she kind of knew what was going on?
Yes. Brian Fallon, one of her top spokesperson, basically said in an email in August that, hey, we've got to stick to the fact that she didn't send anything or receive anything that was classified, because to caveat that would implicate her as being a liar, and also question, it could implicate her in illegality. It could give the FBI some more juice and evidence. So it's better if the public just remains blind to this, and it's a blatant lie, rather than hedge it and say, yeah, maybe some things are classified that was sent or received there. Because that's just the bottom line. She'd been emailing with the President of the United States. All of that is classified. I mean, any communication with the President of the United States over email is automatically classified. And Hillary Clinton knew she was doing that. Her team knew that they were doing that. So when she came out in March 2015 and said she hadn't sent anything classified, just her emailings with the President of the United States would have made that not true.
Wow. And that's amazing. Well, Kelly, give our listeners a way to track what you do. You do some great work. You're always breaking great stories, doing the work that the media was designed to do, being that fourth branch of government, keeping government honest. How can folks follow you?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Kelly Riddell, and you can also go to the Washington Times. We're featured. I do short stories every day. I'm on the water cooler section there, and today I have a story out of the 10 instances where voter fraud is real across the country. It might not be widespread, but it's real.
All made up stuff. The president said today it's all made up.
It's not a myth out there. So anyway,
well,
thank you so much.
Well, as always, you're doing great work. Thanks for being on the show. We would love to have you back in the future. Appreciate what you're doing. And folks, I would recommend you bookmark and follow her on Twitter, whatever you can do. We are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network Studios, WNJC 1360. That's our flagship station in Philadelphia. JD and I will be back shortly. But we also, to those of you who aren't in Philadelphia, we're coming to you from around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live. SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AMFM 24/7. Don't go away. We will be right back.
I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions. We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
Since 2011, we have been calling for a national commitment from all Americans to participate in an annual event to honor all of the victims and their families who suffered during and after the most devastating event to ever take place on American soil. We all remember those horrible scenes of destruction on September 11th, 2001 that unfolded right before our eyes, either up front or on television. We continue to ask every American to participate in the united action of prayer, which is simply to stop whatever you are doing at precisely 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. to either observe 1 minute of silence or to offer a prayer to honor the memory of those who are directly affected by this unforgettable scene of destruction. Please include a prayer of thanks for living in a country where even something as horrific as 9/11 could not weaken our spirit. This year, we would like to ask one more thing as a show of unity since we are still fighting with the enemy who caused the 9/11 tragedy. Would you display the flag for the day at your home, on your car, bike, or anywhere you can display Old Glory? Let's show our enemies that we can still unite in our love for our country.
I'm Pastor Christina Lamanier. I'm a concerned mother and grandmother, and I urge you to vote for Donald Trump. Our Commander-in-Chief's highest priority is to secure the safety and freedom of Americans of every race, creed, and color. Trump will solve the ISIS crisis quickly and utilize the talents of people like Mayor Rudy Giuliani to restore law and order in our streets. Donald Trump will build the wall, secure our borders, and bring back jobs and prosperity to America by slashing taxes, cutting government waste, stamping out political correctness, harnessing our abundant natural resources, unleashing the patriotism and genius of we the people. Always remember, there is a special place in heaven for followers of Jesus Christ.
For more information, log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRA Super PAC paid for this ad and is solely responsible for its content, not authorized by any candidate or its committee.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCSforautomation.com. That's PCS4automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Businessman there, drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Greetings. I don't know if we should... Rick and I sometimes refer to ourselves as the deplorables and the irredeemables, obviously in jest, making fun of what Hillary had to say. But we are back, and if you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, I just want to remind you to check out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. At noon, you can log on to roarradio.net. And at 11 p.m., you can log on to highplainsdailynews.com. And with a phone and this number, 832-999-1199, you can always listen to the Conservative Commandos. We have with us our next guest. This will be an interesting conversation. If you've been following the news, you know what how the left abuses the legal system, and they try to use the power of government to give themselves advantages, even in public policy discussions. And we are pleased to have with us Chaim Mandelbaum. He is an attorney. He's counsel to the Energy and Environmental Legal Institute. He earned his law degree from George Mason Law School. He's got a master's degree from George Washington University. Prior to law school, he worked for the Department of Defense. He was an associate editor there of the military journal Joint Force Quarterly. He also has received his undergraduate degree from the University of Florida. And Chaim, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You've written an interesting article, or been covering this issue as well, on Exxon and the climate change issue. And just so you kind of know who you're talking to, Frontiers of Freedom, that's the organization I'm the president of, is listed in that subpoena that was served on ExxonMobil, and we're one of the groups that they seem to not like. So I'm particularly interested in how they abuse their legal authority and use the authority of government to try to shut the opposition up. Kind of an odd behavior for somebody who's a scientist. I never really thought scientists were in the business of trying to prevent those who disagree with them from speaking, but that's the game they're playing. So what's going on with all this?
Absolutely. I mean, Democratic attorney generals have been playing this game now for the last 6 months. That's the entire goal, to make those who don't agree with their climate agenda shut up or cost them so much money that they're forced to stop fighting back. Back in March, the attorney generals from New York, from Massachusetts, from Vermont, from a half dozen other states, along with Al Gore, got together and they came up with this They put on a press conference, and they decided they were going to undertake these investigations of anyone who disagreed with them on climate change. And now these birds have come home to roost. And they've sent out subpoenas to all sorts of people, including Exxon. They've sent them out to think tanks, and people are starting to fight back. But it's expensive.
Right. Now, I guess some would say, well, hey, listen, elections have consequences. They won the election, so they get to play this game. Why is it inappropriate for law enforcement to use that law enforcement authority to essentially criminalize differing political opinions? Why is that a big deal?
Well, it goes to the very essence of the First Amendment. And elections do have consequences. They get to make policy. They get to make the law. But what they don't get to do is punish you just for having a different opinion. And that's what they're trying to do. They're going after Exxon just because Exxon doesn't agree with them on climate change. Not because Exxon's broken any laws, but just because Exxon doesn't want to bow down and say, okay, you're right, we'll just do what you say. And that's the very things that the court in Texas decided, that this wasn't legitimate law enforcement, but that this was essentially a witch hunt, a predetermined campaign to go after Exxon. And that's why the court there decided to order the Massachusetts Attorney General to turn over documents to Exxon so that they could prove that this was not legitimate law enforcement activity.
Right. I think your answer, if that had been, well, I used to teach some law school at George Mason, and had you been one of my students and had that been your answer to the test, you would have gotten a very good grade on that question because you made the distinction perfectly. Elections do have consequences. The left so often mixes falsehoods with truisms, hoping that truism can cover up for the falsehood. It's true that elections have consequences. They obviously do. Otherwise, we wouldn't care. If it didn't matter, then nobody would vote. We wouldn't care. But that doesn't mean we have a constitutional system, and winning elections doesn't mean you get to do everything you want. We have a constitution that prohibits you from doing some things. And for example, when you win an election, you don't get to do like the Bill of Rights gives you a long list of things you don't get to do. And one of those is, like you said, punish people for disagreeing with you. And that's the very essence of our country's, one of the foundations, just the idea that we can disagree, we can approach our government and say, hey, we don't like this, we disagree. All these rights are wrapped up in that First Amendment. It's important. And they want to use the power of government under the auspices of law enforcement to punish people for disagreeing with them.
Exactly. And I think the court in Texas made that point very well. And the court there said that this was not just an impartial campaign to determine whether the law had been broken. This was a predetermined campaign. The court there looked at documents that the Energy and Environment Legal Institute, my client, had gotten from public records, and saw that Maura Healey, the Attorney General of Massachusetts, had started this whole thing out, already determined to find Exxon guilty. And the Attorney General's job is to uphold the law, not to use the law as a weapon to punish their enemies.
Right. Well, one of the weird things is it's, I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but if he wants to accuse them of a crime, fine, then accuse them of a crime. But what is the crime in not agreeing with the Obama administration's theory on climate change? You know, what if you say there may or may not be climate change? It's not yet clear, but what's not clear to me is exactly what's causing it, because climate has always changed. It used to change before. It wasn't our fault then, so maybe it's not our fault now. In other words, what is the crime that he thought existed?
So this is part of the absurdity of the attorney generals from New York, from Massachusetts. This is part of the absurdity of their position. They want to say that Exxon and others have committed fraud by not admitting that climate change is a man-made thing that's going to destroy us all, because they say that somehow means that investors are getting cheated. Even though the left has been yelling about climate change for decades, they say that somehow investors didn't know about it because Exxon disagreed.
Interesting. And it reminds me a little bit of the tobacco litigation, which I don't smoke, so I don't personally have a dog in this hunt. But I remember as a kid, my grandfather referred to them as, I remember him using words like cancer sticks, coffin nails. He actually had been a smoker earlier in his life, So my point is, the idea that Americans didn't know that tobacco was bad for you struck me as kind of like, really? And then you have people trying to sue McDonald's because people don't know that French fries and burgers are fattening. It's just this kind of lunacy that, somehow because you run an ad with a clown, on it, that somehow that's fraud because you're suggesting that burgers will make you happy or something. When in fact, if you eat them every day, all day, you'll get fat. It's like, who doesn't know this? And
absolutely. In fact, documents show the Attorney General's modeling what they're doing against Exxon and others on the tobacco campaign. I mean, this is what they want to do, only on an even larger scale.
Right. Well, I remember when the tobacco campaign came out, I remember saying sarcastically to a friend, in fact, I think it might be a mutual friend, Chris Horner, and said, you know what? One of these days they're going to argue that fast food is committing fraud. And what I learned from this is be careful, because they're probably listening and they'll do it. I mean,
Chris has mentioned that story.
Pardon?
Chris has mentioned that story.
Yeah. So anyhow, it's just interesting to me. But we sit around and we talk about these things. And I remember one time sitting in a meeting with Newt Gingrich, and I just realized we've got to take a break, and I'm running right through it. Can you stick with us to the break?
Absolutely. I'm happy to be
great. Then we will be right back after this break with more folks. And I just want to remind you all that you are listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're coming to you live from the studios there. WNJC 1360 is our flagship station in Philadelphia. And we're also coming to you around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7. Don't go away. We will be right back.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Since 2011, we have been calling for a national commitment from all Americans to participate in an annual event to honor all of the victims and their families who suffered during and after the most devastating event to ever take place on American soil. We all remember those horrible scenes of destruction on September 11th, 2001 that unfolded right before our eyes, either up front or on television. We continue to ask every American to participate in the united action of prayer, which is simply to stop whatever you are doing at precisely 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. to either observe 1 minute of silence or to offer a prayer to honor the memory of those who were directly affected by this unforgettable scene of destruction. Please include a prayer of thanks for living in a country where even something as horrific as 9/11 could not weaken our spirit. This year, we would like to ask one more thing as a show of unity since we are still fighting with the enemy who caused the 9/11 tragedy. Would you display the flag for the day at your home, on your car, bike, or anywhere you can display Old Glory? Let's show our enemies that we can still unite in our love for our country.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Greetings. We are back. JD and I are here today at the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios. We are filling in for Rick, I believe, and Sharon, who are normally here at this time, but never fear, they'll be back. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check our websites out, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. At noon, you can log into roarradio.net, and at 11 p.m., you can log on to highplainsdailynews.com. And with the phone and this phone number, you can always listen. You don't have to have a radio, and you don't even have to have your computer. A phone and this number, 832-999-1199, and you can always listen to us that way. We have on the line with us, and we've been talking to Cham Mendelbaum. He is not just an attorney, but he is counsel to the Energy and Environmental Legal Institute. He's graduated with a law degree from George Mason. He got a master's over at George Washington, and his undergraduate work was done at the University of Florida, making him a proud Gator. Before that, he's worked at the Defense Department as an editor for their Joint Force Quarterly, and he's been talking to us about this interesting development in which law enforcement, various attorneys generals have conspired to jump in and use their power, their law enforcement power, to punish people for disagreeing with their bosses, with the party platform of their particular party, not actually having done any real crimes, and they didn't do anything that was illegal. They simply didn't subscribe to the elected officials' political opinions, and therefore they should be investigated. And a judge intervened and said enough of this, and we've been hearing from our expert how this came about and what it all means. I just wanted to ask you quickly, when the judge, he referred to this as potentially bad faith, what's the significance of the label bad faith?
Well, it's a very significant label legally, because when something's done in bad faith, that means that all of the deference that the government usually gets goes away. Normally, a prosecutor gets a great deal of deference about what they're doing. They get special protections for the documents they're using to investigate. They get special protections for what they've done in the past. But when they've done something in bad faith, when they've misused their office, then all of that goes away. And now Exxon can begin looking into what was going on behind the scenes. They can, through the discovery process, ask for the documents that were created in the process of this investigation, and they can start to see what was really going on. They can figure out why this investigation really started. And so I think we're going to see out of that a lot of truth coming out, a lot of truth about this campaign that was created by these attorneys general and who was really pushing it. You know, which of the green groups and which of the billionaires funding them have really been pushing these attorney generals to go after the oil companies like Exxon and these think tanks like the Competitive Enterprise Institute and others who don't subscribe or won't bow down and give in to the green climate agenda.
Chum, this is JD, and gosh, you're talking about a very dangerous precedent here. Whatever liberal lunacy government holds to, no nukes, unrestricted government subsidized abortion, men in the women's bathrooms, whatever it is, they're just coming after you. And talk about that. This has gotten crazy. Can we recall attorney generals in the various states? Help us out.
Well, in some states you can. I'm in Massachusetts, I don't believe so. But more importantly, this is going to set an important precedent, because you're right. If they're allowed to get away with this, then it's going to become something that's done routinely. Anytime you disagree with their orthodoxy, they're going to use the power of the state not just to create laws that put their policies in place, but also to use law enforcement to punish you for daring to disagree. And so one of the things Exxon is doing is trying to squash the subpoena so that the judge can say that not only can they do discovery, but that the Attorney General has to stop their investigation.
So could we see a day under the same theory that if I have a bumper sticker that says value life, that a party that thinks that aborting babies moments before they're born is okay, and that thinks that the public should pay for it, that they could come after me and try to make my life difficult just because I have a bumper sticker? Is that the kind of logic they're using?
I think that logic flows. Yes, I mean, it's a little more extreme than what they're doing right now, but I think that's the end result. And someday you could see them demanding, well, who made that bumper sticker? Who did you pay that bumper sticker for? Things like that. You could eventually see them going after anybody who disagreed with them under the theory they're pushing forward here. And that's why it needs to be killed here and now, so that it isn't used to go after anybody and everybody, the common citizens who have their own opinions.
Well, it sounds a lot like Lois Lerner and the rampant IRS investigations of conservative groups and the denial of their exemptions. It's just government run amok. It's horribly so. I'm so glad you brought this issue up.
It is government run amok. And even worse than government run amok, it's people being brought into government who are so fervent in their beliefs that they don't care about the law. They believe that what they're doing is right, and they have almost a religious fervor to it. They think that they can ignore the law because they're on the side of the righteous, and so they can just do whatever they want to those they disagree with because it doesn't matter what the law says anymore. They think they're doing what their God wants.
Like maybe firebomb Trump headquarters in North Carolina. It's a logical extension of this lunacy that's going on.
Yeah. I mean, when you feel that you're so right and morally justified that it doesn't matter what you do, you don't have to follow the law. I mean, imagine. I mean, I think the other side wouldn't like that if we did that. Like if we thought that we were so right that we could do whatever we wanted. They seem to get really upset when. I've never advocated violence. I'm very pro-life, but I don't advocate violence in the promotion of that. But yet sometimes there'll be somebody who does that. They go ape when that happens. But when they firebomb a political place, they don't even see the slightest irony in painting a swastika on it and then calling the GOP Nazis.
No, they really don't. And
I mean,
we see it in the EPA. There are blatant violations of law. The misuse of email to coordinate with outside activists. And we saw it in the IRS with the Lois Lerner situation. We see it all over, that they've brought in people who are so fervent in their beliefs that they are right, and that those who disagree with them are not just wrong, but are evil, that they can feel they can ignore the law and use whatever tactics they want to crush them, while at the same time pretending that they are the ones who are the good guys. And it's really quite frightening.
Oh, it is. And I think it's intended to be frightening.
Chum, is this kind of like Chicago thug politics?
I've never dealt with Chicago politics, but if this is like Chicago politics, then that must be a very scary city.
Yeah, well, I think it is. We are up against the clock again, and so, Chum, I want to thank you for being with us. I want to make sure everyone knows that how to follow what you're doing, and so if you can give them, I don't know if it's Twitter or Facebook or your website, but I want people to follow the work you're doing because you're doing great stuff, and if they don't know what Mr. Mandelbaum is up to, then they're missing out. So enlighten us.
Well, please follow the work we're doing. It's eelegal.org, eelegal.org. And you can see the documents we've gotten, some of which the judge in Texas used in realizing that the Attorney General in Massachusetts was acting in bad faith. And everything is there, and you can see all of the lawsuits we've had to file in order to get this stuff, in order to try and expose the truth.
Well, great. I really appreciate it. It's been great to talk to you. We'll look forward to talking to you again. We've got to have you back on the show. But we're going to go into our break right now. We're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360. That's our flagship station in Philadelphia. And, of course, we're coming to you from around the world, we're coming to you around the world on the Internet from American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM FM 24/7. Don't go away. JD and I will be right back.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions. We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
Since 2011, we have been calling for a national commitment from all Americans to participate in an annual event to honor all of the victims and their families who suffered during and after the most devastating event to ever take place on American soil. We all remember those horrible scenes of destruction on September 11th, 2001 that unfolded right before our eyes, either up front or on television. We continue to ask every American to participate in the united action of prayer, which is simply to stop whatever you are doing at precisely 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. to either observe 1 minute of silence or to offer a prayer to honor the memory of those who are directly affected by this unforgettable scene of destruction. Please include a prayer of thanks for living in a country where even something as horrific as 9/11 could not weaken our spirit. This year, we would like to ask one more thing as a show of unity since we are still fighting with the enemy who caused the 9/11 tragedy. Would you display the flag for the day at your home, on your car, bike, or anywhere you can display Old Glory? Let's show our enemies that we can still unite in our love for our country.
I'm Pastor Christina Lamanier. I'm a concerned mother and grandmother, and I urge you to vote for Donald Trump. Our Commander-in-Chief's highest priority is to secure the safety and freedom of Americans of every race, creed, and color. Trump will solve the ISIS crisis quickly and utilize the talents of people like Mayor Rudy Giuliani to restore law and order in our streets. Donald Trump will build the wall, secure our borders, and bring back jobs and prosperity to America by slashing taxes, cutting government waste, stamping out political correctness, harnessing our abundant natural resources, unleashing the patriotism and genius of we the people. Always remember, there is a special place in heaven for followers of Jesus Christ.
For more information, log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRA Super PAC paid for this ad and is solely responsible for its content, not authorized by any candidate or its committee.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
And this is J.D. Muneer and George Landreth. If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's Conservative Commando radio show, check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com, or at noontime, log on to roarradio.net. And in the evenings, 11 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com. And you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Our next guest, Jeff Crouer, is a native of New Orleans, Louisiana. He's the host of a very popular television show on the weekends called Ringside Politics, airing on WLAE-TV, Channel 32. And during the week, Jeff has a very popular radio show on WGSO 990 AM in New Orleans. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show, Jeff.
It's great to be back. How's everybody doing?
Hey, pretty good. And I really enjoyed an article you just put out called Turn Out the Lights, the Republican Party is Over. Talk a little bit about that.
You know, I've been so frustrated with this election, and been so frustrated with the Republican Party and the attitude of the elites and the establishment and the party regulars toward Donald Trump and the grassroots, and they've really done everything they can to sabotage him. And if he does lose in 3 weeks, I think there's going to be a real bitter fight for the future of the Republican Party between the elites and the grassroots, and I don't think it's going to end well. And I think there's going to be a lot of finger-pointing and a lot of blame to go around. I'm hoping he wins. I think he still has a chance for victory, and I think a good step will be a good debate performance. But it's hard to win when you're up against the Democrats and the special interests and the media and half of your own party as far as the leadership. It's hard to overcome all that.
Jeff, if the leadership won't support their nominee, They won't fight against executive unconstitutional overreach. They won't push for the people's agenda. What are they for?
Well, they're for the status quo. I mean, they're for the perks and the power and the privilege that goes with being in Congress and being in a party leadership position, and the go along, get along bunch. They really are not for what the people are for. What we're for is repealing and getting rid of Obamacare and shutting down the president's executive amnesty and stopping this runaway debt and deficit spending, and they're not really for what the people are for. So we have a guy who is connecting with the grassroots, who was nominated because the grassroots are so angry at the party. And the party establishment is very upset. They don't like that. And they're thinking to themselves, hey, for us, it'll be much better if Hillary wins, so it could be business as usual. I mean, Trump could destroy our cozy deals. So they're really trying to hurt him, and they've done a good job of really helping Hillary, in my view.
What do you think of this? I remember the day Trump he endorsed Ryan and McCain, this very same day, and that was to demonstrate party unity. I don't think that was like the top priority he had on his mind of things to accomplish, but he did it. And what did they do in return? Knife him in the back. Comment.
Well, they gave him no credit for doing that, and they did knife him in the back. The second that he had a controversy come up with this tape that was mysteriously leaked right before the WikiLeaks disclosure, and of course it was something that he was embarrassed about and he apologized for. But the second there was some sort of a little bump in the road, they abandoned him, and they really cut him loose. And if he does win, I hope we've seen the last of Paul Ryan as Speaker, the last of Mitch McConnell as Senate Majority Leader, and that a lot of these, quote, Republican leaders lose their jobs because, you know, they have really done very little. Trump has done a good job on his own of raising money, and he's got more small dollar donations than any Republican candidate in history. But he doesn't have as much as Mitt Romney because the big money donors, the whales, what they call them, really have not gotten behind him.
You know, you talk about the Skittles in the jar, and if you want to talk about, you know, indiscretion, I don't know what's the order of the Clintons versus Donald Trump and his wife. I mean, you know, one Skittle versus a huge garbage bag, you know, a 30-gallon tub full of Skittles, I think is the order and magnitude. You think of all the things, the pay-to-play, the sexual harassment and the rapes and everything going on with the Clintons down through the years. Why doesn't the leadership latch on to that? What say you?
Well, I mean, again, I think they're so offended by Trump. He's not their type of person, and he is not their cup of tea, and he is too brash and outspoken and opinionated. So instead of everybody uniting behind a Never Hillary campaign, and we should all unite behind stopping her from appointing the next 4 Supreme Court justices and stopping Hillary's leftist big government agenda. But no, they're more interested in stopping Trump, and that really, to me, tells me what they're all about. And it's about themselves and their power, not about the American people. So it's been really eye-opening and very, very disturbing, and it makes me question whether after this election I'm still going to be a Republican or not.
We just have a couple minutes left before our first break. But, you know, up here in the Midwest, got friends supporting Trump and a lot of grassroots operatives. They are going all out here in Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. I'm hearing good things. What say you? How about down in the South, down your way?
Well, I think we're looking good in Louisiana and Mississippi. Obviously, those are better states for him. Although his lead did shrink a little bit after the disclosure of the tape. we are going to be sending teams of people over to Florida to try to help the effort there. And I think that's going to be what we're going to try to do, help the nearest battleground state and turn that in the direction of Trump. I think if he can win Florida, if he can win Pennsylvania and Ohio, and maybe pick off a surprise or two along the way, I mean, I think he can win. And if he can just keep what Romney did, and that's going to also be North Carolina, which is very, very close right now, and then add Florida, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. I mean, that's victory. Right now he's doing pretty well in Ohio, but not as close in Pennsylvania. In Florida, he's a little bit behind, but it's certainly winnable. So if he can't win Pennsylvania, then hopefully he can pick off another one of these states that Romney lost, such as Michigan and Wisconsin.
Hey, right on. We're up against that hard break, Jeff. Can you hold with us just another couple minutes? We want to get you right back.
Definitely.
This is J.D. Manier and George Landreth coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Since 2011, we have been calling for a national commitment from all Americans to participate in an annual event to honor all of the victims and their families who suffered during and after the most devastating event to ever take place on American soil. We all remember those horrible scenes of destruction on September 11th, 2001 that unfolded right before our eyes, either up front or on television. We continue to ask every American to participate in the united action of prayer, which is simply to stop whatever you are doing at precisely 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. to either observe 1 minute of silence or to offer a prayer to honor the memory of those who are directly affected by this unforgettable scene of destruction. Please include a prayer of thanks for living in a country where even something as horrific as 9/11 could not weaken our spirit. This year, we would like to ask one more thing as a show of unity since we are still fighting with the enemy who caused the 9/11 tragedy. Would you display the flag for the day at your home, on your car, bike, or anywhere you can display Old Glory? Let's show our enemies that we can still unite in our love for our country.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
And this is J.D. Manier and George Landreth on the Conservative Commando radio show, and you'd like to hear rebroadcast of today's show, check out our website, TCRSnetwork.com and TCRShow.com, or at noontime, log on to RoarRadio.net. In the evenings, 11 p.m., you can log on to HighPlainsDailyNews.com. And you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. We're with Jeff Crouere of New Orleans, WGSO 990 AM. Welcome back to the Conservative Commando radio show, Jeff.
Well, it's always good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, here's some establishment figure. My governor, Mike Pence. How would you rate his work for this campaign right now? I want to get your opinion.
I think he's been pretty good. I wouldn't call him fantastic, but I think he's been pretty good. He's been sort of a low-key guy without making any major mistakes. I think he did pretty well in the debate, and he seems to be towing the campaign line pretty closely. I know he sort of backed away a little bit during the whole controversy when the tape was released, and canceled an event that he was supposed to go to for Trump, but I guess they've been able to repair things, and going forward, I think he's an asset for him. I mean, he's a guy who is solid, and he's got a good conservative record. He's very low-key. He's not very flashy, but he seems to be someone with a good heart and good principles.
You know, if Donald Trump can overcome the media, can overcome members of his own party, overcome all of this, you think he can overcome Putin? You think he can work hard to slash our deficit and restore constitutional liberties in our military? Talk about that.
Well, you know, you make a good point. I mean, if he becomes president, he will have overcome more opposition than anybody in history. I mean, he will have overcome 96% of the media. I don't know if you saw the new survey of all media donations, and 96% of them are going to Hillary, only 4% to Trump. So that tells me that, I mean, the media is almost monolithic in their support of Hillary. So you got the media, the Democrats, special interests, Hollywood, the labor unions, of course, the various minority groups. You've got the Muslim community. All these folks have been, rallying against Trump because he's perceived to be Islamophobic and racist and everything else, which I think is all untrue and inaccurate. And then, of course, he's got half the Republican establishment opposed to him, all the Democrat machinery. So, yeah, if he can win, I think he can take on anybody. I mean, I think he can take on certainly ISIS and our foes and China and Russia. And I hope he works with Russia to try to go after ISIS, because I think we have some common ground with Russia on battling radical Islamic terrorism.
I've got a quick question for you. This is George Landis, by the way, Jeff.
Hey, George.
I totally understand folks who say, Trump wasn't my first pick or my second pick or whatever. I understand that. He wasn't mine either. But this is what I don't understand, is in what world is doing anything that helps Hillary Clinton get elected a logical or reasonable or patriotic thing to do? That's the part that makes my mind explode. I understand why rational, reasonable people can disagree on who the nominee should be. We all have our different opinions, and rational, reasonable people could pick, a Trump. A rational, reasonable people could pick a Scott Walker. Rational, reasonable people could pick a Rubio or a Ted Cruz. You know what I mean? But a rational, reasonable conservative can't possibly say, yeah, I think that since I didn't get my guy, I'd be better off with Hillary. So what goes into this calculus?
Well, I think some of them have deluded themselves into thinking that Hillary won't be that bad. And that somehow they'll be able to buy their time and come back in 2020. And I wrote a book called America's Last Chance, and it's at my website, jeffcruere.com, and that's CROUERE.com, because I really believe this is it. And if we lose this election and Hillary gets to implement the policies and make the appointments of a Saul Alinsky follower, then I think our country is headed for a very, 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 very dangerous future. And I don't know what's in the thinking of these people like Glenn Beck or the Mike Lee of Utah, and some of these folks who have backed away, like John McCain and others, and all the Bushes and the people that are really opposed to him. I mean, they obviously are comfortable with Hillary and her philosophy, and for some of them, it tells me, well, they're really not as conservative as I thought they were, because you take away everything else, just the Supreme Court appointments. And the fact that Trump has promised to appoint people that have been recommended by the Heritage Foundation, people with very strong conservative credentials. And we know who Hillary Clinton is going to appoint. We know the kind of liberals she'll appoint. On that issue alone, that should be enough for all conservatives, all Republicans to get behind Donald Trump. Not even talking about all the other issues, the economy, immigration, fighting ISIS, and Obamacare, et cetera.
I'm an attorney by trade. I used to teach constitutional law, and one of the things that concerns me is if we had 4 years of Hillary Clinton, it's very clear that the left has hostility for free speech. The left has hostility for religious liberty. That doesn't leave a lot left in the First Amendment for people to rally around. If you get the kind of court in place that shares that hostility, and those are the sorts of people that Hillary will be, supporting. And these are people who want to use the power of government to force people of religious faith to do things they don't agree with. It's fine to have laws that we don't agree with. There's lots of laws that any American can say they don't agree with. What we have not historically done is forced people to participate in the law, notwithstanding their agreement. In other words, we haven't gone to people and said, it's crazy stuff. I mean, this administration has done things that have never been done before, and this is the sort of thing we can expect in the future. I don't understand why this isn't sufficiently motivating. In 2012, sure, we could come back and beat Hillary maybe. And it may not matter, because you may have a court in place that will basically overrule everything that the next president could try to do to undo the damage, because the court will be so far shifted to the left that they would just argue, oh, you can't do that. That's unconstitutional. And, and unconstitutional would just mean that they don't like it. It doesn't jive with their politics. So that's why, to me, this is very important, because you can't, but you're right, there's so many other bases on which this could be. You've got the economics of it. Donald Trump has a pro-growth economic policy. That's what we need. We need some growth here. We need to get this economy rolling again. That not only just for people so they can bring home a better paycheck and so people can be employed again, but quite frankly, it's the only way you'll ever tackle the national debt is through growth. You got to cut spending, but you're not going to cut enough spending to pay back $20 trillion. We're going to grow our way out of that.
Well, and his tax cuts are good. His advisors are some former Reagan advisors who I think are giving him very good guidance. And I think he knows how to grow business, and I think those sorts of capitalist skills, pro-free enterprise skills, really will be very helpful for the next president. But Hillary, on the other hand, is a bureaucrat. She doesn't know anything about business. She just knows growing government and higher taxes. And I just think she'll be very bad for the economy, as well as all these other things that you pointed out that are going to be, on the line if Hillary is elected president. So all of those never-Trumpers out there, you really need to come on board and try to stop this lady from becoming president.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, like I said, I understand that in the process of getting the nominee, it's very reasonable for people to have their favorite candidate and not all agree on that. But once you get past the nomination, I was always a never Hillary person. Because the track record.
Well, I didn't like the Bushes or McCain or Romney or Dole, but I got behind them when they were the nominee. I mean, that's what we did. I thought as Republicans we came together behind the nominee, but now the establishment has laid down the law. Either we're with one of their candidates, or that's it. They're going to sabotage an outsider, and I think it's going to be hard to put this back together if Trump loses on Election Day 3 weeks from today.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there'll be recriminations of kind of epic proportions. And to those who, I mean, there were people who who stood out and didn't vote for Romney because maybe, because he's a Mormon or something, and their attitude as well, in 4 years we'll get somebody else. I know that in the last 4 years they said to themselves, I wish I hadn't done that. They have to, if they're rational. So I would say to the never-Trumpers, you may think this all sounds smart today, but there'll come a point at which during the next 4 years you will have to say to yourself, I wish I hadn't done that.
Exactly, and I hope they come to their senses prior to Election Day than regret their decision after the Election Day, after they see what Hillary Clinton is going to do. But it's going to be pretty dangerous a direction she's going to take us. So I just hope and pray we can get a movement in these next 3 weeks, which really is a grassroots fire for Trump, and that he has a good debate performance to maybe ignite things going in his direction. And I still think there's an opportunity because I think he's got intensity of support. I don't think there's a lot of intensity for Hillary. So I do think that we can turn this thing around in the final days.
We're going to hit a hard break at the top of the hour. Can you give people your email address? I mean, it's not your email, but your how to follow you on the line, because we're going to get cut off by the computer in just a second.
I'd love it. It's jeffcruere.com, and that's CROUERE.com, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you all.
It's been great to have you here. We're out of time, so we've got to go. It's JD and George saying thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll catch you next time.